in terms of career, my journey again was interesting. When I was in Sierra Leone, I had focused on sciences. At the United World College, I focused on sciences, and I went to Brown with the intent of being an engineer. And I actually enrolled in engineering, and I did 2 years worth of the engineering course, which is a pretty structured course over the 4 years. And one of the things that we were allowed to do in engineering was to take one elective per semester outside of engineering. And I was naturally drawn to electives in political science, international affairs, and economics. And what I found by the end of my second year in engineering was that I was spending a lot more time on those electives than I was on my engineering courses.
Oh, wow.
And so I went through a period of really intense self-reflection and sort of, grappling with this sort of change of identity. Say, well, if I'm honest with myself, I'm not feeling the passion for engineering, but I'm feeling the passion for, in this case, economics. And so after the end of my second year, I decided to switch my major, which you can do at an American university, and I'm very grateful for that. And so I majored in economics going forward. I still liked math, and so I also took a degree in applied math. That's a decision I've never regretted. I think that it really taught me at a fairly early stage in life the importance of following your passions and trusting your gut instincts and being true to yourself. And I've never regretted that switch.
I love that. But I do have to ask you a question. Switching majors from being an engineer to going into economics from an African family where everything is doctor, lawyer, engineer. Did your parents know that you had switched majors, or was it something that you just did? You know what I mean? Like, what was that like? Because there's always like a family backstory.
It's a great question. I was actually very concerned about how my parents were going to react. My dad was an engineer. He was a mechanical engineer. And so I think he had always seen me as somebody who would go into engineering.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time as I went through that decision process worrying about how my parents were going to react. And one day I plucked up the courage to call them and tell them, and they, were just like, oh, okay, that's good. And it was a non-issue completely. And so this whole, conflict that I had set up in my mind turned out to not actually materialize in any way. And they were very supportive of my switch. And so I was very grateful to them for that. So sport has been a consistent theme ever since I was a child, in that I was a sports fan. And growing up in Sierra Leone, we were lucky to be able to play, at least as children, many different kinds of sports. I come from, as I said, a large family on both sides. And so with my cousins and at school, we played football or soccer. We had local versions of tennis. We played cricket because that was a
Oh, you played cricket? That's amazing.
Yeah, we played cricket.
Yeah.
There was track and field and athletics, and so we grew up in a world where sport was a constant. I was drawn to it from a very early age, and my dad was a sports fan as well, and so we watched a lot of sports on television. And I, was a particularly avid sports fan, especially once I, started following what was the English First Division back then, today the Premier League. And so really, with a group of friends, tracking games on a daily basis and keeping track of where our teams stood. And so that was a constant. I think when I went to the US, that love for sports transferred to basketball and American football. And I got exposed to other sports like golf. And so that also became part of my world. As my kids grew up, they became, was playing in youth sports in the US. And so as a home, we had basketball and soccer and lacrosse and baseball all going on, sometimes on the same weekends. And I also became interested in the business side of sports, and sports as a business, as a part of the economy. And so for me, really as a hobby, I was beginning to track what's happening in sports and the acquisition of sports teams and the valuation of sports teams, because it linked to kind of the work I was doing
Yes.
more broadly in mergers and acquisitions. But that latent interest was there, and I pursued it sort of on the side. It was, my way of relaxing from, intense days on Wall Street was to watch sports and to follow sports.
First of all, I have to actually congratulate you on what you achieved while you were the CEO of NBA Africa. Honestly speaking, it's really difficult to bring something that was, because basketball is in Africa, but it's not as structured in that kind of way. And what you were able to achieve as the CEO of NBA Africa, and the opportunities that have been afforded, and just things like stadiums being opened up in Kigali. Congratulations, that's incredible. Because I really feel like it gives so much to the sports economy in Africa, which is something that I do feel that a lot of government, policymakers, and the private sector has to pay more attention to. So I had to first start out by that. But for you, being the CEO of NBA Africa, how did what opportunities did you see in Africa? Because currently NBA is in Africa, the NFL is in Africa, and as much as Africa's got a really large talent pool, everything comes down to numbers. So from a numbers financial perspective, what opportunities did you as CEO see in Africa?
Yeah, no, thank you. And thanks for the kudos. I did everything with a team of very dedicated and very able people. And so, all the accomplishments that happened during my time at NBA Africa are not my accomplishments alone, obviously, but there were a lot of people within NBA Africa here on the continent, and then a lot of supporters within the NBA outside the continent, from New York and other parts of the world, and then people who were not part of the NBA who were supporters. And so I'm grateful to all of them. It was a collective achievement. The question that you asked, though, was one that I asked myself when I contemplated leaving Standard Bank to join NBA Africa. I said, what is this about? It appealed to me on a personal level, as I said, as a sportsman and someone who'd been consistently interested in sports business, and someone who had avidly followed the NBA and its ambitions internationally and in Africa, to want to be part of that and to want to help shape and drive that. And I think, as I thought about it then, as I think about it today, a number of things still hold true. One is that there is abundant talent on this continent, and that talent deserves this opportunity to show what it can do on the highest level. And part of what we do in sports and the work to be done in sports is creating opportunities for our talented youth to fulfill their potential and help reshape global narratives and perceptions of Africa, while also, doing good for themselves and their families and their communities, etc.
Yeah.
The second thing that again was true then and that I wanted to be part of was to help drive sports as a vehicle of economic growth and development on the continent.
Yes.
you know, sports globally is a growing, thriving industry. And in Africa, it really is under-indexed in that it contributes a lower percentage, about a quarter of GDP contribution on the continent as you have elsewhere in the world. And so much of that is because we haven't looked at sports as an economic vehicle, as an economic engine. And one of the things that really attracted me about the NBA's vision for Africa was that that was part of what they wanted to drive. And I, as someone who had worked in, with companies and advising them on growth in Africa for, almost a decade at that point, to me, it was a continuation of what I'd been doing in the banking world, but now I got to do it with a global organization in the sports world. And that continues to be something that drives me and part of what, led me to found Lions Rage Group. And then the third sort of more specific element of that is sports as a way to drive infrastructure on the continent. And one of the things we see, particularly in the US, but to a certain extent in Europe and parts of Asia, is that sporting infrastructure can become the anchor for that spurs development within a community and helps transform that community. And in Africa, we had both the need for sports infrastructure because we are woefully, undersupplied with sporting infrastructure. And we also have the need for infrastructure that helps drive community growth and economic activity. And sports can be that anchor to help drive that infrastructure growth. And so those were the big, longer-term goals that I wanted to be part of as CEO of NBA Africa, that I think we advanced when I was there, and that I want to keep working on as founder of Lions Rage.
Welcome to the Salary Scramble with Lee Kasumba, where glossy titles end and real founder stories begin.